All right, guys, so now we're ready for chapter 8, and we really finished strong with chapter 7. I know that was a lot of information, and for the most part, you guys did a really good job. And I know that all of my guys, I know you tried, and I could see you give an effort, and that was good. So let's keep it up with chapter 8. This is going to be a little bit more fun, not quite as much to have to remember in terms of all those details about the war, so that'll be a little bit easier for you. And this is about the Greek world and their Greek culture. And it matters because the Greeks made advancements that continue to shape our world today. We are still using a lot of the ideas that the Greeks have, and especially in terms of what we think is classical, what we think is beautiful. And we still are influenced by their what they think. So let's get started. So, and move me down. One of the things that the Greeks believe, they have a different belief system. So let's look a little bit about their culture. One thing is that they all speak Greek, and we've talked about that Greek language. And even though they were isolated and they had different ideas about government, things like that, they shared beliefs and traditions that were the same. And they believed in the same myths and traditional stories about the gods and their heroes. And these myths were explanations about what had happened in the world to explain things. So in your notes, write the word explanation there. So we're trying to explain why the earth is round, or why the sun comes up when it does, or why the moon is dark at night. So is the light that shines in the night. Pen over here. There we go. And so that's what, so this is all about explanations. Explain what's happening in the world. And they're united in the sense that they do share that same culture. So we're going to see them participate in the same type of festivals, have the same type of stories, and they read and write the same language. So who are these Greek gods? What is their mythology that they believe in? What does that mean? And I know that some of you guys probably could teach me a lot about this. I learned that the other day in pause, and you guys knew so much. But for those of you that this is a new introduction to, we're going to talk about what they believe in their terms of Greek mythology. So the Greeks believe in many gods and goddesses, and they have myths, myths, you can see that there. And these gods had great powers, but they acted like humans, even though they had this power. And they believe that the 12 most important gods lived on Mount Olympus, which is going to be the highest mountain in Greece. It's north of Athens and north of Sparta, so it's all a little bit further north up in the higher mountains. To win the favor of their god, people of each city-state would perform certain rituals. And when they would perform these rituals, it was in hopes that the god would reward them. So they would give Athena, if they from Athens, they would give her gifts in hopes that she would shine upon their city and that all would be well. I'm covering that up. Let's see what goes right here. There we go. So all Greeks, even though they have their own patron gods and goddesses, they all have worship the chief god, the top god. That's going to be Zeus, and they participate in competitions for the greater glory of Zeus that later turned into the Olympics, and we still celebrate those Olympics today because they took place on Mount Olympus. In Olympia, that's the name of the city, and Mount Olympus is there, and they called them the Olympic Games. So that's something, another cultural diffusion, right? That beside the Greeks, right down here beside the Olympic Games, right? Cultural, Tural, another example of cultural diffusion. You're going to see a lot of cultural diffusion in this. All right, so we got one more slide from me. The Greek beliefs. So a little bit more about that. So Greeks believed that each person had a fate or destiny. And to find out their future and what was going to happen, the Greeks would visit an oracle, just like oracle bones, because that's oracle to tell the future, to tell what's coming. There would be a sacred shrine where a priest or priestess spoke for a god. So you would go to the shrine of the goddess Apollo, or to the oracle at Delphi, and you would have the priest or priestess there speak to the god and come back with a solution for you, and come back with an answer. All right, so now we'll need to hear from Miss Tickle. She'll be right back in here and tell you some more about their stories.
Hey. Okay, so epics and fables. These are different than myths. So you've got kind of like 3 areas now of literature that you need to know the differences of. And again, everything that we're going over with you, when it comes to the arts types of things is going to go in the achievements section of grades. So, epics and fables. Greek poems and stories are some of the oldest literature in the Western civilization. The first Greek stories were epics, and you guys have already heard of epics from Mesopotamia with the Epic of Gilgamesh. A poet named Homer wrote two of the greatest epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, that is inspired by a war between Greece and Troy. Epics were more than stories to the Greeks. They served as inspiration for Greeks to be courageous and to be the best that they could be. So these are stories that are very similar to being a sort of like a long poem. Fables were created by a man named Aesop around 550 BC. Fables were short stories that taught a moral or a useful lesson. Fables often used animals that speak and act like humans. So you may not realize that you guys probably know several fables, but you really probably do because they're usually read to you as a child. So The Boy Who Cried Wolf is a popular fable that you might be familiar with. The Tortoise and the Hare. Fables are always going to teach you that moral. They're teaching you some type of lesson, whereas an epic is not doing that. An epic is telling you a story, very similar to a long, long poem. Okay, so now your hot question. Why do you think most of Aesop's characters were animals rather than humans? Now think about this, guys, okay? Think about when you hear these stories, think about what the stories are about, what are they trying to do, what are they trying to teach you? This one should be a minimum of 3 sentences to your answer. We should see vocab in there, okay? And definitely have to see specific vocab in there because you're talking about Aesop, and Aesop created what? Fables. Okay, so make sure that you're restating the prompt and not starting it out with a pronoun. You can do it, guys. Just pause the video and write 3 sentences. Okay. That's the same hot question. We have another slide for the hot question. So there you have it again, in case you paused it. It's another hot question, but it's the same one. So why do you think most of Aesop's characters were animals rather than humans? Now we are going to do the impact of Greek drama. The ancient Greeks created and performed the first dramas. In ancient Greece, there were 2 types of dramas, tragedy and comedy, and were always performed on stage. So here we have more cultural diffusion. I want you guys to write that over here. Let's see. No, it's not letting me write it, but I want you writing it in, okay? Cultural diffusion, the impact of Greek drama. Write some cultural diffusion there, because when we go to movies, we are seeing comedies, we are seeing tragedies, we are seeing them both, okay? Greek art and architecture. The ancient Greeks excelled in the arts and architecture. Classical Greek art set high standards of beauty and is still admired today. Every Greek city-state had a temple dedicated to a god or a goddess. Many of you talked about in Athens, they had Athena. Okay, so they had one dedicated to a god or a goddess. They had large columns that supported many Greek buildings and have inspired famous buildings in the United States, such as the White House. Okay, guys, this is probably one of the biggest things for cultural diffusion that we definitely have to see in grapes. We need to see that you know this. So we are, again, right here going to write cultural diffusion. So I want you to think of these Greek columns, okay? In the Greek columns, here's the Greek Parthenon. You guys have seen columns. Columns are everywhere. Many, many buildings have them. Take a look here. The Lincoln Memorial. Let me erase my little cultural diffusion now. You should have it so you can see that picture. In the Lincoln Memorial, we have columns. Guess where else we see columns, guys? Give it a big thought. The The leader of our country stays in this place. The White House. Very good. I knew you'd get it. It's the White House. We see the columns at the White House. So cultural diffusion has given us Greek columns. Oh, looky there. It's in a little pink cloud. Color your cloud in pink then, if it's on there. If it's not, make the cloud, because it's cute. Okay. Oh, that's it. That's it for me. Okay. Miss Hodges is going to come end the video now.